good morning and welcome. My name is Jody Ozarski. I have the privilege of hosting us here this morning. And whether you're joining us in person or online, we are so glad to have you a part of this morning's Wake Up West Coast. You know, one of the things that we say at the West Coast Chamber is, you ask, we deliver. And one of the things that we've heard from both our participants who sit along the front of the room, as well as those joining us digitally, is that sometimes it's hard to see the slides and things as they're happening. And so you'll notice we've added a big TV up front here to make that easier for people to participate fully in this morning's event. So I say that to let you know that when you fill out those surveys for us, we're listening. So we'll send you a survey again this morning after this event, and we'd appreciate your feedback, both the good and the bad. How can we do this better? So we appreciate the feedback that we get. I'll also say that safety at the West Coast Chamber is our number one concern these days. We want to keep our staff, our family, and our friends and colleagues safe. And so this morning, as you finish up eating your breakfast, we would ask that you would take a moment just to put your masks back on. You know, there's a lot of people in the room. We want to make sure that you all leave here in the same healthy condition that you came in to us this morning. I also want to take time to be able to thank this morning's sponsors. Our morning mingle sponsor this morning is Independent Bank. Hopefully you had a chance to meet Dan and the team out in the lobby beforehand. If not, take some time to stop by and see them. They've got some exciting new things happening here in our community. So we appreciate Dan and Independent Bank for being our morning mingle sponsor this morning. And then our program sponsor today is Consumers Energy. And you're thinking, okay, I don't think Patrick Moran works at Consumers Energy.
Not yet.
Not yet, but he's campaigning. Consumers Energy has been incredibly gracious to donate their time that came with their sponsorship this morning to allow Patrick to share some exciting news that's happening with the Greater Ottawa County United Way. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Patrick Moran.
Good morning. I'm not actually part of the program. There was just nowhere else to sit. So.
Thanks for that. So Patrick, tell us about this exciting new development that you have, the Goods Donation Center.
Yes, during the COVID pandemic, way back at the beginning, you might remember this cool rule about cleaning your groceries before you bring them in the house and disinfecting them. Well, that's great for a trip to Leppinks or Meyer, but it's a little tougher when you're getting tons of food delivered. So we at the United Way had this idea that as all of this extra food and materials and things for emergencies were coming in, we would glean, clean, and quarantine them. Normally we do that in my office for backpacks and stuff, but we actually created something called the Goods Donation Center in a warehouse space that United Way actually owned in Allegan County. So we created this Goods Donation Center, put 53 tons in the last 18 months of food, frozen food, goods, all kinds of stuff for clients and agencies in our community. 53 tons in the last 18 months.
That's amazing. So where are all these goods coming from?
Well, most of them come from drives that we hold in the community. Some of them come from corporate partners. One of our corporate partners is actually Amazon. And one day I showed up to the Goods Donation Center and learned what a Gaylord is. It is some of you are laughing because you know what it is. It's a 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot tall box full of stuff. And we got 12 of them in one day. So we have drives, we have corporate donations. The reason that consumers gave me their time this morning is because I called it a warehouse, but it was actually an unfinished, empty building. And Consumers has kindly awarded, as part of the People Award, $150,000 to outfit that building to actually be able to handle the kind of volume we've seen over the last 18 months. And I just want to say thank you so much to Consumers. We feel that heat and light are useful in a warehouse.
Yeah, especially these days, right? It's a chilly morning in West Michigan. So tell us, how can we as a community, as a chamber, get involved and support the work that you're doing?
So you knew there was a hook somewhere having me up on stage here. So when we do these drives, we have things like baby showers where we get diapers and onesies and some of the medical stuff you might need for babies. And when we do the backpack drive, we have backpacks and all kinds of stuff. Right now we're doing Alice Essentials Drive to get all of those things that Alice families need that will save some money for their rent. And the way we do that is normally through corporate workplace drives. So if you want to host a big baby shower for the whole community, if you want to host a backpack drive, if you want to host an Alice Essentials drive. We just finished a coat drive with over 1,000 coats donated. You can do that right at your company. Just get on Ottawa United Way's website, www.ottawaunitedway.org, and look at the place where it says engage, and there are instructions on how you can run your very own drive for any of these things that will get processed through the Goods Donation Center and delivered out to agencies and clients all across Ottawa and Allegan County. Without you, there are no goods.
That's fantastic. Patrick, thank you. Thanks for the great work that you and your team continue to do throughout our great community here. And thank you as well to Dan and Independent Bank, Rich Houdeman, and Consumers Energy for your ongoing support of the work that we do at the Chamber. We truly couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you. So if you come to a Chamber event, you know what we're in for next. We never let you leave without doing a little networking. So we're going to take a couple of minutes now for you to be able to have an opportunity to get to know the people that are joining you this morning at your table. And so over the next couple of minutes, we'd love for you to share your name, your company, and then where have you found inspiration as a leader? So just a light topic for you this morning. So take a couple of minutes, get to know the people at your table. If you're joining us digitally, you can do the same by sharing that in the chat function in the online event. So go ahead and meet your neighbors. Thank you.
Great job, Jody.
Thank you.
Is that good?
That is fantastic.
I decided to
Okay, welcome back. Good morning. Welcome back. We're ready to get started. I love hearing all the networking happening. I hate to break that up. Just know that at the end you can continue those conversations because we love seeing those connections happening here live in the room. It's my privilege now to introduce today's speaker, Rodger Price. Rodger is one part engineer, one part leadership coach, and all parts great all-around guy. I've had the privilege of working with Rodger over the years through our West Coast Leadership Program, and I just consider it a privilege to have him here with us this morning. You're in for a treat. No matter where you're at on your leadership journey, there are things that I know you'll be able to take away from Rodger's presentation this morning. So with that, I'll turn it over to my friend Rodger Price.
Thank you, Jody. I have to share with you, it's an incredible privilege and treat for me to stand in front of a crowd like this. I have so many mentors in the audience, those that inspire me in the audience. My dear wife, who I've learned a ton from, Bruce Loss, one of the big mentors in my life, and many others. So it's very humbling. I'm going to give you my very best, but just know, I see John Lanning. I was just like, I could start naming names, Mike. It's very humbling to be here. What I'm going to talk about today are really two things. One is what makes you, you. And secondly is, I believe there's something special going on in West Michigan. And it's time for me to not just quietly talk about that, but kind of share it with an audience. So think about, what is it that makes you, you? And I'm not talking DNA and things like that. But each of us is really unique. The name of our company is Leading by Design. The meaning of that is that each of you has a unique design. And whether you believe there's a designer or it just kind of happened, each of you has a unique design. We're going to talk about that today a little bit. Normally I do this in about 2 hours. And so I can only take 90 minutes today. No, I'm kidding. I can only take 30 minutes today. So we have a mental model, a framework, a lens that we look through called the Dunobi Tree. This was named to sound like some African mysterious tree or something like that. But I'm a former engineer. My wife calls me a recovering engineer. I'm not sure what she means by that. But this is what an engineer would do. It's just 3 words. What you do, what you know, and who you be. And sometimes we engineers don't do grammar all that well either, so sorry if I'm offending any engineers in here. Blame it on my wife. So the Dunobi tree is really just a focus, and it's a metaphor for leaders. When you look at a tree, what you notice first is the canopy. And when you look at a leader, what you notice first is what she does, her behaviors. Now, what enables those behaviors is what she knows and what skills she has. So, and then what you don't notice, but it's incredibly important, is what's going on inside, what's underground in this metaphor. So I'm not going to talk about all the things that leaders need to do. That would take a long, long time. But we think there are 2 biggies. It's not the focus of my talk this morning, but I'll at least throw them at you. And by the way, some of the fonts on here aren't big enough for you to see. So on your table is a handout. Some of you love fill in the blanks. So I even left some of it blank so you could fill those in. You know who you are. And if you didn't get them all filled in by the time you leave, you're going to go, hey, what was this one? I'm happy to answer that for you afterward. So there's 2 things we believe that a leader needs to do. Create clarity. Who are we and where are we going? And then secondly, how do you build an amazing team? That's actually pretty simple, and it's pretty hard. This isn't rocket science, but it is hard. Not unlike running. Running's not all that complicated, Bruce. I mean, there's things, but man, is it hard. Not for you, but for me. So, know stands for 2 things. What knowledge do you need to be this leader? At United Way, there's a bunch of knowledge you need to have if you're going to be a great United Way leader. And there's probably some skills you need, like sitting here and speaking to an audience, right? Those things can transfer from one person to another. That's part of what you need to do to be as a leader. But this isn't so much your design. This isn't what makes you you. That's in the B portion of the tree. So what's underground, what's inside, is what makes you you. And it starts with the most important thing, I believe, are my beliefs. Those things, I know they're true. I mean, there's things I know are true about this, and yet there's some people who say, no, it's not. And I can't prove it. I can say follow the science, but honestly, as a scientist myself, it's like the science is evolving, and we knew it would. But there's things we believe about this, and we might even fight over our beliefs. Turns out other people might believe different things. And so this is the most important thing that makes you you. What you believe about the world is the world that you live in. Secondly, what do you value? What's more important to you than is to other people? Maybe I think about those of you at home. You might value something like, I want to see this presentation, or I want to support the chamber, but I'm worried about COVID right now. And so I'm going to support by being online. That can come from some beliefs you have and some things that you value. I'll bet everybody here values the chamber and what the chamber does for us. And so we're going to support one way or another. Third most important thing, so beliefs and values, first two most important things that make you you. Third is, what are you passionate about? Passions are the fuel that will help you deal with all that stuff that you have to deal with to achieve amazing things. If you don't have that fuel, you won't make it through. You'll quit. You'll stop. Now, here's one of my beliefs, and I'm going to share more beliefs in a moment. We're going to take a deeper dive into the beliefs and values piece. One of my beliefs is that your passions, they chose you. You don't choose them. I've tried to choose some passions, like running. I was a bit of an athlete earlier in life. It's like, I want to fall in love with running. I could not get passionate about it. And that I think there's others that first 2-3 times they ran, it's like, this is magic. So whether I'm right or wrong doesn't matter, but you have passions. Whether you chose them or they chose you, you should figure out what they are. That's part of what makes you, you. Fourth most important then are talents. I would call them gifts, because I just really believe you didn't choose what to be amazing at. It was put into you, either by random chance or by a designer. And we probably have all kinds of people that believe both of those things that I'm talking about here. It doesn't matter. It's in you. Figure out what they are. Something I believe about gifts is most people don't know what they are in them. They see them in someone else. I remember when I went from engineering into the teaching world, my wife said, "You're going to be amazing at that." I'm like, "What?" And I had 2 other friends say that too. It was like, I'm used to staring at my shoes. What do you mean I'm going to be amazing at this? Sorry, engineers, we don't really stare at our shoes. We stare at other people's shoes. We often don't even know where we have gifts. We often also don't know where we have voids. I might think I'm a great public speaker, or think American Idol. I might think I'm an amazing singer. And what we find out is some people are, and some people aren't. This is part of who you are. This is in my opinion, the fourth most important part of what makes you, you. Beliefs, values, passions, gifts, and then lastly, wiring, how I naturally engage with the world. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Do I learn more by action and let's go and we'll cross that bridge when we get there? Or am I more of a, no, I've got to think about this and let's look before we leap? And there's a lot of tools in this space, great tools. In my opinion, however, it's the fifth most important part of what makes you, you. And so I'm not going to talk much about that, but we've probably all done. At one point, I counted 12 of these tools that I'd either done or seen and heard presentations on, and I love them. And it points out, wow, we're all different. I don't believe it gets at beliefs, however, which I think is incredibly important. So, before we dive into beliefs a little bit further, I'm going to remind some of you of an exercise that's been used many times. And for some of you, it will be brand new. But what I want you to do is count the number of F's in this sentence. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. So in a moment, I'm going to put that back up there, and I'm going to give you 10 seconds to count the number of F's. This is a no talking exercise. Please don't say it. I'm just going to, by show of hands, how many of you saw 1? How many of you saw 2? How many saw 3? Okay? Here we go. 10 seconds. Okay, how many of you saw at least 1? Okay, at least 2, at least 3, at least 4, oh, at least 5, at least 6, at least 7. Wow, so we saw 3 is when, after 3 is when people started to drop their hands. Nobody saw more than 6. That's a little weird, because that's an objective thing. This is not a subjective thing. I want to try it again. Okay, so here we go. How many F's? 10 seconds. Finished files are the result of years. Okay, so let's do the count again. Raise your hand if you saw 3, 4, someone's weird here, 5, 6, wow, and nobody saw 7, I assume. Okay? There are 6. And this is fun, but I'm doing this for a purpose, and in a moment I'll share that purpose. I'm going to give you one last chance, because some of you are going, there's no way. By the way, I could make a lot of money by betting on this, right? Some of you are ready to bet $10. It's like, no, there's only 3. I'm going to give you one last chance. No talking. Don't share with others what maybe is going on. Finished files are the result of years. Well, I wish I knew who was raising hands at home, right? And do you feel silly raising your hand at home? So who wants to share? Now you can talk. Who wants to share what you think is going on there? Nice and loud. Missed of. I believe, here's another of my beliefs. I believe that when I put a phonetic F in your mind, it kept you from seeing the phonetic V's. It could also be you just skipped over a little, but it's like, no, I think they would. Your brain is so stinking smart that we can mess with it and then it'll miss things that are obvious. That's a powerful point to be made. I'm going to make it again with another thing. So here's a two-dimensional representation of a cube, right? I mean, it's not really a cube, it's a flat thing with lines. But in this representation of a cube, I want you to think about which face of that cube is closer to you. And to make it simpler for you, I'm going to color one kind of bluish. Boy, that I'm not sure shows up that well. But so let's call this one white. I'm not sure what it looks like at home, and then let's call this one bluish. Raise your hand if the blue one is closer to you. Okay? Raise your hand if the whitish one is closer to you. Raise your hand if you see both. Okay? I knew there would be all 3. Here's the trick. Research says you can't see both at the same time. That if you're going to see someone else's cube, you have to let go of your cube. So we could take this into all kinds of diversity and seeing the world differently kinds of things. There's some really powerful lessons in this. But just know that once you put something in your brain, it makes it really hard to see something else that doesn't fit that. So I like riddles. We have grandkids, right? And we'll often just get online and look at riddles. So here's one of my favorite ones. What 5-letter word becomes shorter when you add 2 letters to it? Say again? Short. Yeah, you were thinking it was going to get smaller. No, it becomes shorter when you add ER to it. I messed with your brain. You made an assumption. This is what's real. We do this often. These become beliefs. Okay? I also know of 2 people, a woman and a man, that played 5 games of chess, and they each won the same number of games, and there were no ties. How did that happen? 5 games, no ties, and they each won the same number of games. How did that happen? They didn't play each other. Okay, so that's enough really. I mean, we have so many more that are fun, but there's different kinds of riddles, but basically they try to put you in a certain direction. They plant something in your brain. Well, let me do one last one. Someone be so brave. I know it's like now you think I have things up my sleeve, and so someone spell the word yes, nice and loud. Come on. Well done, well played. Now, no talking. Raise your hand if you know what E-Y-E-S spells. Raise your hand if you know what E-Y-E-S spells. I love this one because of the irony. If you don't see it, it's right above your nose. It's eyes. But when I put yes in your brain, all of a sudden you think it's like e-biz or e-yes or whatever. No, it's eyes. So imagine you're going through life and these things come at you, and you think you know what's going on. So one of my beliefs, I want to share some beliefs with you. One of my beliefs is that most people think they see all the F's. Now, you can't go through life, it's like, I don't know, therefore I can't move forward. I'm paralyzed. Any engineers? No, never mind. So you have to figure out what do I believe is true and go forward. And if I believe there's 3 F's, then I have to live as if there's 3 F's. However, you should be open that other people might see other F's. They are there. So be aware. You have to go forward based on what you believe. You can't lead in any other way than based on what you believe is right and good. And you have to be aware of the fact that maybe you're missing something. Okay, let me share another of my beliefs. If you believe you can, you clearly can. Anybody know who Jim Dreyer is? I know Bruce does, right? Remember when I first met Jim Dreyer? He's this guy that has swum across basically all the 5 Great Lakes. He's swam across Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, and it's like, when I first met him, it's like, dude, I know you believe you can. I don't believe you can. I think you're nuts. I think you're going to die. And he almost did. But he swam across. If you believe you can, you can. I could talk about that a lot longer. By the way, if you believe you can't, it's a good chance you can't. Here's another of my beliefs. Hurt people hurt people. And so if someone's hurting me, even if they're trying to hurt me, this helps me when I think about something has happened with them, something has hurt them. And they may not intend to hurt me, maybe it's something else. And that just changes my heart toward them. If I can get to my beliefs and my values. Sometimes, by the way, we act automatically. We don't act in alignment with our beliefs and values. But maybe this is the process of our journey of growing. Leadership is the #1 sustainable advantage for talent attraction and retention. I believe this wholeheartedly. Now, we know that of the top 3 issues virtually all of you are dealing with, talent is in the top 3, either 1, 2, or 3. This is a huge time to lead well for sustainability. Now, it might not change your talent challenge next week if you learn something this week, but over time, this is what will help you attract the great talent and retain great talent. Here's my last one. West Michigan is uniquely positioned to be the hotbed of the best leaders in the country. I think that again, engineer, I've overthought this. There's data involved, there's logic involved. I think that what Nashville became to country music, we should become to leadership. What Silicon Valley became to technology, we should be that to leadership. So at your table, I want you to take 2 minutes. Think about who are some, well, let me go to your beliefs first. At your table, I want you to take 30 seconds yourself and go, what are some of my beliefs that I'm kind of betting my career on and betting my life on? And what are some things you believe? Come up with 1 or 2, and then I want you to share them. In 3 minutes, I'm going to call you back and maybe hear some of yours. So, okay? 30 seconds to think of them. So I should hear silence for 30 seconds, and then I'll tell you, okay, now share some at your table. Okay, you can start sharing. A couple of minutes of sharing some of your beliefs. Okay, I've got it. One more minute. Thirty seconds. Okay, come on back. I want to hear maybe 3 or 4 examples. What's an example of something you heard at your table? It wasn't one of your beliefs, but someone else's. I'd just like to hear 3 or 4 of those. Nice and loud.
That anything is possible, especially with God's help.
Anything is possible, especially with God's help. Thank you. A few more.
I think people are trying to do the right thing.
People are trying to do the right thing. Yep. That changes how you lead, by the way, if you believe that.
Someone at our table said that things can always be improved.
Things can always be improved. That's really good. And again, this changes the way you lead. Let people know this is one of my beliefs. Let me hear one more. Go ahead.
It's important to make people feel appreciated.
It's important to make people feel appreciated. So these are just some of the beliefs. You've got to figure out, from where am I going to lead? Now, intuitively, you probably do these. But if you're leading a team, it might be nice to let them know, these are some of the beliefs I carry. And if you can't align with that, we should talk. Our beliefs are all going to be different. But we should be pretty well aligned if we're going to be an amazing team. Okay, so I'm going to answer this one for you. How do your beliefs affect your life, your work, and your leadership? In every single way. I read one person say, virtually everything you do is based on some beliefs, including how you drive, including whether you think you can put a log in the fire without getting burned. And everyone else is going, oh. It's like, it's because I believe I can, or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to move on to values now. These are the things that are more important to you than to others. And we have a list of over 100 of these value statements. And on a table on the way out, I left an exercise, if you want to do it, around, of these 100 or so, or even, it might even be close to 150, what are your top 6 things that are most important to you? So, but between these two, timeliness or excellence. As I was preparing for this, I kept going through the slides, I kept going through, it's like, what do I want to say, how do I want to say it? And at some point, it's like, okay, they wanted my slides at a certain, it's like, nope, just got to get it to them. As a recovering engineer, right, one of the things we do is you always believe you can make it better. So at what point do you stop trying to make it better? Well, for me, timeliness is more important than excellence. Huh, can I say that in West Michigan? I just did. Could be, I might have to move now. But for me, excellence is important, but timeliness is more important. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's who I am. Let me give you another one. Efficiency or creativity? If we've got a way of doing things and you just do it that way, you're likely going to be very efficient. But creativity might be more important to you. And as I've learned about myself over the years, I really like efficiency. But there's something in me that's like, how could we do this different, though? Doesn't make it right. It just makes me, me. This is part of what makes me, me. So again, I've got a list of over 100 of these. In the exercise, it says, which of these are important to you? And you might end up, turns out nobody's against discipline. Nobody's against it. But it might be really, really low on your list. And so then it says, what are your top 6? That's when it gets really hard. Knowing who you are is really hard. Sometimes, by the way, my wife tells me who I am, and she's right on. Says, you have real passion for that. You highly value being on time, and it's not. She's working at being exactly like me, but it's not been going that well over the last 50 or so years we've been hanging out, right? So. Yes, you know what I'm saying, and I'm an issue. So whose beliefs and values are the right ones? Great question. I don't think there are right ones. You have to lead, though, by what you believe and value. Let me talk about passions. When do you feel this kind of passion? What are those things in your life? It's like, I love doing this. I lose track of time. Okay, I'm not going deeply into this one, nor am I going deeply into gifts and voids. I'd love to. But again, it's a 2-hour thing. So I just want you to know that mostly what's easy for you, and you think, well, this is easy for everybody. It's like, no, it isn't. You have a gift. And people around you know your gifts better than you know your gifts. Listen to them. Seek out their feedback. And then lastly, wiring again. Well, I've already talked about that. I'm not going to go into it further. We could take a deep dive. But your sweet spot, your design, is the intersection of these beliefs, which you probably have 1,000, by the way, and values, maybe your top 5 or 6 values, where you have passion, where you have gifts. If you're operating out of there, watch out. Because you can. You can do whatever you want to do. So now I want to shift to this thing about West Michigan. And then I'm going to answer any questions if you have any. So when I first started sensing that we could be the hotbed of the best leaders in the country, it's like, I can't dare say that to anybody, but I believe it. And so I want to start with you processing this. Think about who are some of the people 50 years ago and 20 years ago and 70 years ago that have said, if this is true, let's pretend for a moment, this is true. We should be to leadership what Nashville is to country music. We should be that hotbed. Who kind of set us up for this? Come up with a name, and then I'm gonna ask for maybe 5. Okay, Mark? Max Dupree is an obvious one, a great one. Thank you. Who else? A.C. Van Raalte. I don't know much about, but yes, obviously. Who else? Ed Prince. Now, I was close enough to Ed Prince. In fact, I'm really close to some people that were very close to Ed Prince. It's like, absolutely. And I came through that Prince thing. I think that's part of where this came from. It's like, there's something unique here. Two more. Lou Hallisey. That's a great one. Yeah. Jane, by the way, Jane, you're at home. I think Jane got exposed to COVID, so that's why she's not here today. I hope it's okay, Jane, that I shared that. But yes, when you hear Lou Hallisey, I'll bet something goes on in your heart. I don't think she has COVID. I think it's like safety, right? She shouldn't be here. Say again. Oh, boy. So I don't know him. I'm not even sure I could repeat the name. But Howard Beneflossen? Okay. Thank you. Can you? Ah, there you go. Thank you. Okay. So here's a point. If I gave you 5 minutes at your table to share names, you'd come up with a ton of names. Now, Kansas City would too, right? We're not super unique there, but it just seems like there's a density of these kinds of leaders in West Michigan that I've not tasted other places. And when I share it with others that have been all over the place, go, you're right. Now, we've got work to do. There's some areas where we really fail as leaders. But I really do believe that we could realize this. So here's the last thing I want you to do. I want you at your table to take 2 minutes and come up with, why could we realize this vision? What is it we have going for us? Not just in the past, but I see Mike this morning. There's so many leaders in David. It's like, man, we've got people to build on today, big time. But what else? Why could we make this happen? If we can be Beer City, okay, we aren't, but couldn't we be the hotbed of the best leaders in the country, this corridor? Okay, so 2 minutes, talk on your table about why could this happen? Then I'll take a few, and then we'll wrap it up. I'll just do it. And you tell me how many.
Yeah. You know what? I just need like a minute and a half, 2 minutes at the
Okay,
end.
and we're done at what time?
9.
9. Okay, great, thanks. One more minute. Thirty seconds. Okay, finish your sentence. Don't start a new paragraph, please. I'd love to hear some of what's stirred up. Let me hear from at least 5 tables that haven't spoken yet. So if no one at your table has spoken yet, share one reason why you believe this could happen.
I liked Tim's answer here, and it was the collection of creative and engineer minds.
Nice. This mix of creative and engineer, almost like oil and water in some way. We've figured out more or less how to do that well. That's great. What else? Patrick.
We had lots of fun things, but Dan, before he left, said that we have really strong values here that seem to be lived out.
Strong values that seem to be lived out. Not just have values, but honestly, you don't have them unless you're living them out. That's really good. Let me hear a few more.
Collaboration.
Yes.
Play together really
We play together really well. Collaboration. Yep. We could play together weller. Especially with those that see different F's than we do. And so that's one, if we're going to become this, there's some things we're going to have to really work on, but that's a great comment. Let me hear 2 more.
diversity.
Diversity. We have diversity. We don't always realize that. We have a ton of diversity here. I remember when I went through Leadership Holland in the 90s, yes, I was even old then. I think they said there were 42 languages spoken in the homes. I don't know, do you have an estimation, Nick, these days of? 60. That's diversity. Okay, let me hear one more. There's a willingness to learn and mentor. That's something we value. That's something we believe in. So here's my belief. If we believe we can, we can. We can become this. Now, what if I'm just totally delusional and we pursue this and it was just a big pipe dream? Would that be bad for us? It's still a wonderful thing to go after. But I also believe we should be this. Now, I don't think we'll ever have a billboard. I think we'll just have people start talking about what the heck is going on in West Michigan. They cast vision better. They handle conflict better. They know how to bring people in with differing views better. You will make that happen. You at home are the ones that either make this happen or not. So we have, if you have any questions of me, we have just a few minutes. Anybody have a question? Like, when we getting out of here?
I think as human beings, we have a propensity to think that everybody else is like us, or that, our way is the very best way and everybody else should be like us. How do you break free from that
Yeah.
thinking?
Honestly, so the question is, we have a tendency to think we see all the F's. We have everything right. Here's the way to live. And honestly, my poor wife, for many, 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 many years, that's how I viewed the world. I think I've got it figured out. She just needs to work on some things. It's like, man, I was such an arrogant. But I'm hoping that this model helps point out, it's like, you aren't the right one. But that doesn't mean you can't move forward as if your beliefs don't matter. You just have to have this fine balance of, I know what I believe, I'm going to pursue it, and I'm going to be open to when someone sees something that I don't see. Now, sometimes people are just wrong, and sometimes I'm just wrong. So it's an interesting dance. I hope that answers your question. You're welcome to share the Dunobi Tree with whomever if you think it will open up some. It's like, I wonder if my son has different beliefs than I do. He better not. No, of course he does. So, any other questions?
Rodger, what does being a leadership hotbed mean to you, and what could be the outcome of being that?
So the number one thing I would like to see different in any hotbed is that we know how to have difficult conversations where we honor the other person. But we also have the difficult conversation. And it sort of feels like you do one or the other. It's like, no, there's a way to do both. So that's the first thing. A second thing would be that we get clear about who are we as a person, but who are we as an organization, and where are we going? So purpose and vision, and how will we play? What are our values? So those are just 2. There's several other things that I think will look like. The result of that will be people that lead much better lives. You know, there's this expression about people leading lives of quiet desperation. That wouldn't be going on. We would learn how to, when something's bugging me, let's get into it. It's like, you know what? We differ so much on beliefs and values. Maybe I need to go somewhere else where my beliefs align better. And so you'd have companies that are aligned better. You'd have much more productivity. You'd have much more creativity and innovation. So those are some of the things. That's what it would look like. I don't think we'd be able to measure it. Basically, I measure the result of our work with people on unsolicited comments. I think that's a great way to assess. Now, we also send out surveys, but when you ask people, it's like, yeah, you're really nice. You know, we know the West Michigan nice thing, right? I just don't trust it. But when someone unsolicited says something, it's like, that might go beyond West Michigan nice. Especially if it's, Rodger, you know, you should have worn a tie or something like that. So, any others? We have one more minute before I turn it over to Jody. All right, well, what an incredible privilege it was to share with you today. I hope you walk away with some nuggets that are helpful at home. I hope you stay home with some nuggets that are helpful. Thank you so much.
Rodger, thank you. It takes a lot to feel energized after getting up at dark 30, right? To be here this morning. And I don't know about you, but I'm leaving here feeling energized and encouraged by the wisdom that you've shared with us. We live in an incredible community filled with amazing leaders, and you've empowered us to go out and make a difference. So thank you for that. We'd love to have you join us again next month as we gather. It will be on Tuesday, March 8th, and we're going to build further on what Rodger was talking about diversity in our community and looking at building inclusive places of work and the importance that that has on your organization. So we'd love to have you join us for that. As I mentioned earlier, we'll also send out surveys after this morning's event. We'd love to have your feedback, both good and bad, so that we can put together just the greatest experience for you when you join us. And then finally, as you leave here this morning, Ottawa County has shared with us a large number of KN95 masks. I know those can be difficult to come by, and they've asked us to help distribute those throughout our community. And so if those would be helpful for you, we'd welcome you to grab a pack on your way out so that you can use those for you and your family going forward. And with that, I'll say good morning and thanks for joining us today.